We have now started to change the structure of our application, and we're starting with the model. And we have already moved one of the methods that was inserting into a database to the model, and we have moved what we had in a logic folder to the model as well, to the corresponding model. So this lecture is a challenge for you. You're going to evaluate all of the code behind for all of the views that we have and evaluate what code should actually be in the model. If you want a small hint, the code that should be in the model is the one that either defines business logic and not view logic, and that interacts with the source of the information. So, right now you can pause the video, try out yourself, move all of the code that you think should be in the model, and when you're ready, you can come back to the video and see how we solved it. Okay, so I assume that by now you have already at least tried to move all of the code that is currently in the view and that should be in the model, because we are now going to start working with the solution. So we have to start exploring all of our views. If we start with the history page, we're going to find that we are currently making a request to the post table. So this line of code should actually be inside of the post class. So I am going to cut this from here, and I am going to open the post class. Below the method, the insert method that we already have, I am going to define another method, which is going to be public static async, but this one has to be a task, because this one is going to be returning a list of posts. And this is going to be read. We can paste this line of code, but we also have to define this as the posts. The posts is going to be obtaining the value, making a query to the table with a specific where operation. Now we can assume that the where operation is going to remain like this, because this is how the app should work. It should only display posts that are from the current user. So we're going to leave the where operation, and we're not going to be requiring any additional information inside of the arguments of the method. And finally, we can return the posts. And that's it. Now back in the history page, we can await a call to the method that we now have in the post class, that is read. And it requires no parameters. The rest of the logic or of the lines of code that is inside of this class is still related to the view. We are accessing one of the view's elements and assigning a property, in this case the item source. So this is currently okay. This is a line of code that has to do with the view. So the history page is now cleaned up. If we go to the home page, we don't have any functionality in here except for the navigation from one of the toolbar items. So we don't have to make any changes in here. Inside of the main page, we do have something that we have to change. We have a lot of code inside of the clicked event for the login button. And all of this is business logic. It's about whether or not the user should be able to log in. So all of this code should probably go inside of the user class. So I'm going to open the user class, and I am going to copy all of the code that we currently have inside of the login button clicked event. In fact, I am going to cut it. And back in the user class, I am going to define a new method, which is going to be public and static, so we don't need instances of this class to be able to use it. We're going to make this bool, so the method returns whether or not the user should log in, and it's going to be called login. It's going to be requiring two parameters, the user and the password, and we can paste what we have just copied. Now, we do not have an email entry in this context, but we do have a user. So I am going to pass the user to the is null or empty in the first case and the password in the second case. Now we're also making an await operation, so this will have to be async. And since this is going to be async, the return type should be task and a bool like this. We also need to change the name for this variable because we already have a user variable. Or actually, I will change the name of the parameter that we are receiving to email. I'm going to use email inside of the first is null or empty. In the where evaluation, we also have to change the email entry.text for the email that we are receiving, as well as the password instead of the password entry. Now after this, we actually have some functionality that is exclusive to the view because we are using methods that come directly from the page. So we need to change this. This has to remain inside of the main page. So how do we solve this? Well, this method is going to return a boolean. So we have to return the boolean in here. If this if evaluation is true, we're going to be returning true. If it wasn't, we are going to return false. And in case no user was received from the mobile service, we are also going to return false. And finally, we will also have to return false in case either the email or the password are empty. So back in the main page, we will have to evaluate what the login value is going to be and act accordingly. So in the login button clicked event, I am going to define a boolean that is going to be can login, and that is going to be equal to user.login. And as email, we're going to pass whatever is inside of the email entry.text. And for password, we're going to be using the password entry.text. Now, this method is an async method, so we have to await it. And now is where we evaluate that login. If canLogin is equal to true, then we're going to navigate to a new home page. And since we are on an async method, we can await this operation too. And in case the canLogin method is false, we're going to be displaying an alert with an error title and a try again message. Again, this method is an async method, so we're going to await it. And this is going to be the exact same functionality that we had before, except this time the functionality is located inside of the user class, which will eventually make things easier to maintain and to reuse. Once we've changed the main page a little bit, let's take a look at the map page, where we are currently getting the information from the mobile service directly. And if you remember, we already have the read method inside of the post class. So instead of using this method, we're going to be using the one that is already defined in the post class. So we're going to be calling the read method directly from the post class. The rest of the functionality inside of this class, all of it has to do directly with the interface, which is displaying the map, displaying pins into it, so we don't have to change anything else inside of this class. We have already taken a look at the new travel page, so let's take a look now at the profile page, where we are also getting the post information directly from the mobile service. So here too, we have to change the call for it to be to the read method that is inside of the post class. Now in here we also have some functionality that is getting a categories dictionary. This functionality can also be inside of the post class, because this has to do directly with the post table. So all of the functionality from getting the categories to performing the for each loop is going to be defined now inside of the posts class. Right below the read method, I am going to define another public method, which is also going to be static, and it's going to be dictionary with a string for the key and an int for the value. And it's going to be called post categories. It is going to receive the list of posts from where we are going to be getting the categories, and inside we're going to be adding the code that we had just copied. Right after the for each, it is going to return the categories count variable. Now we are currently using a post table, and what we have defined is a post, so I am going to copy and paste the correct definition. And now that this method is ready, we can head back to the profile page and get the categories count by calling from the post class the post categories method and passing the post table that we received earlier. And finally, let's take a look at the register page, where we are currently inserting a new element into another table, in this case the user table. This information, just like we did with the post table, should go inside of the user class. So I am going to copy this, and I'm going to open the user class, and I am going to create a new method right below the login method. This is going to be static, it's going to have to be async, it's going to be void, and it's going to be called register. And we're going to be receiving a user object, and inside I'm going to paste the method that we previously had in the register page. Back in the register page, what we have to do is call from the user class this new method that is called register and pass the user that we create in the code above. And that's it. We have now changed the structure of our project when it comes to the model at least, so the business logic now comes directly from the model classes. And now our view is starting to look cleaner. And by the view, I mean the code behind for the views. Not only what is being displayed into the screen, but the code behind that view. In the next lecture, what we are going to take a look at is the view model.